On a night when the fog swallowed the forest whole, a man walked into the darkness, bound by a promise he could not abandon. But what he did not know was that what awaited him in the woods was not among the living. A child's laughter echoed through the silence. And with every step, he moved closer to a secret more terrifying than he could ever imagine. Martin's promise, a haunting tale of a vow that crossed the boundary between life and death. When a promise becomes a bond between the living and the dead, will he fulfill it, or become another lost soul wandering the forest forever? Martin stood amid a thick fog. His breath hit the freezing air. Dry leaves crackled beneath his old boots. The smell of damp earth rose from the forest floor. He looked around cautiously. The beam of his flashlight swept across tall trees. A moving shadow flickered in his sight. His heartbeat grew louder with every step. He had come here to keep a promise. A promise made to an old man in the village. Do not leave her alone in the forest, the voice echoed in his mind. He had not understood then who the old man meant. A sound came from deep within the woods. A scream swallowed by the cold wind. Martin stepped forward slowly. The flashlight in his hand trembled. When he reached the stream, a faint stench drifted through the air. He looked down, and saw small footprints sinking into the mud. Martin called out a name he remembered from a letter. Anna. Only silence answered. Then, a whisper floated back. The voice was soft, as if from beneath the ground. You came too late. Martin flinched. The flashlight flickered and went out. Darkness swallowed everything. He heard footsteps circling him. Slowly, closer with every second. The stench grew stronger, until he could hardly breathe. His hand reached for a small wooden box in his pocket. The last thing he had to deliver to fulfill his promise. Suddenly, a child's laughter echoed behind him. He turned, and what he saw made his heart nearly stop. Martin froze. His breath caught in his throat as the sound of that laughter echoed through the trees. It was light, innocent, and terrifyingly out of place. The fog swirled around him like pale hands reaching from the ground. He could see nothing, not even the outline of the trees he had just passed. The world had turned into a wall of gray and silence, except for the faint sound of giggling that danced from one side to another. It seemed to move around him, circling, playing, teasing. Martin gripped the small wooden box tightly. His knuckles turned white. It was supposed to be a gift. Something the old man said belonged to her. He opened his mouth to speak, but his voice trembled. Anna, is that you? No answer came, only the rustling of leaves and that soft, childish hum, a lullaby he faintly recognized. He had heard it once before, in the village. An old woman had been humming it near the fire, her eyes blank, her lips quivering as if caught between sadness and fear. When Martin asked her about the song, she had only shaken her head. Do not go there, she whispered. The forest remembers what the living forget. The words echoed now inside his skull. The forest remembers. Martin took a cautious step forward. The mud sucked at his boots, reluctant to let him move. He aimed his flashlight again, though it flickered weakly, as if refusing to light the way. In its pale beam, he saw something, tiny handprints on a tree trunk, smeared with what looked like dark soil. But when he leaned closer, he realized it was not soil. His stomach twisted. It was dried blood. He stumbled back, nearly dropping the box. The laughter stopped. The forest went still, so still that even the wind seemed to be holding its breath. Then, from the mist, a shape emerged. Small, fragile, wearing what looked like a white dress. Her bare feet made no sound on the wet ground. Her hair hung over her face, dripping with water or maybe tears. Martin's voice broke as he spoke. Anna. The figure tilted her head slowly, unnaturally. Then she spoke in a voice soft as a sigh. You came to keep your promise. Martin nodded, barely breathing. Yes, I brought it. The box. It's yours. He extended his trembling hand, offering the wooden box forward. The child stared at it for a moment, then lifted her head. Her face was pale, almost translucent under the weak light. And her eyes were empty, black hollows where life once was. A chill raced down Martin's spine. He wanted to step back, to run, but his feet refused to move. He could feel something cold brushing against his skin, like fingers tracing invisible lines up his arms. "Open it," the girl whispered. Martin hesitated. "It's not mine," he said softly. "It belongs to you." The girl smiled faintly, a curve of lips that never reached her eyes. "Open it, or the promise breaks." He looked down at the box. It was old, carved with strange symbols that seemed to shimmer faintly under the dying light. He had never dared to open it during his journey. He remembered the old man's warning, "Never look inside until she stands before you." With shaking hands, Martin undid the small latch. The box creaked open slowly. Inside, there was a single object, a locket, made of silver, covered in dirt and age. He lifted it gently, brushing off the grime. When he opened it, his heart nearly stopped. Inside the locket was a faded picture, of the same little girl standing before him. Next to her was a younger version of the old man, smiling faintly, his hand resting on her shoulder. Martin looked up at the child. Tears stung his eyes. "What happened to you?" he whispered. The girl's smile faded. "The river took me," she said softly. "He tried to save me, but the river took us both." Martin's breath hitched. "Both," he repeated. She nodded. Her pale hand reached out and pointed behind him. Martin turned. There, half hidden in the fog, stood another figure, the old man from the village. His eyes were hollow, his face drained of color, his clothes soaked as if he had just come out of the water. He was watching Martin with a calm, mournful expression. "You brought her locket," the old man said, his voice echoing unnaturally through the mist. "You kept your promise." Martin's legs trembled. He felt something cold drip down his neck, water, though the sky was clear. He tried to speak, but his words wouldn't come. The girl stepped closer and placed her tiny hand over the locket. Her touch burned with cold. Then, slowly, she smiled again, this time, softer, almost human. "Now she can rest," the old man said. "And so can you." Martin shook his head. "I don't understand." The old man's gaze softened. "You never left the river, Martin." The world around him shifted. The fog thickened, curling like smoke. He looked down, and saw the reflection of his own face rippling in a pool of water that had formed around his feet. His skin was pale, his eyes lifeless. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. The girl and the old man stepped back, their figures fading into the mist. The last thing Martin heard was that gentle lullaby, the same one the old woman had hummed by the fire. It grew quieter, softer, until only the whisper of the wind remained. When the villagers came searching the next morning, they found the old wooden box lying open beside the river. Inside was the locket, and a damp photograph of 3 faces. The old man, the girl, and Martin, standing beside them, smiling faintly, as if at peace. But the villagers said that sometimes, when the fog rolls over the forest at night, you can still hear a man's footsteps on the muddy path, and a child's laughter trailing softly behind him, keeping a promise that was never meant to be broken. As the fog began to lift, the forest slowly revealed its quiet sorrow. The birds had not yet returned to sing, and the air still carried a strange chill, a memory of what had just passed. The river, calm and glassy now, reflected only the pale morning light. It was as if nothing had happened, yet everything had changed. The villagers built a small shrine near the riverbank. They placed the old locket inside a glass case, surrounded by wildflowers and candles that never seemed to go out. No one spoke loudly there. It was a place of silence, of remembrance, and of unfinished promises finally kept. Sometimes, travelers passing through the forest would say they felt a presence, gentle, almost guiding. Some claimed to have heard the faint sound of a man's voice calling a name with love, not fear. Others said they saw a small girl's shadow standing by the river, smiling, before fading into the light of dawn. The villagers did not fear these stories. They believed the forest had been healed, that the spirits who once wandered in sorrow had found peace. And though no one saw Martin again, his name remained carved into the wooden cross beside the river, beneath a simple inscription. A promise kept beyond the veil. Every year, on the same misty morning, a single white lily would bloom at the edge of the water. No one planted it, and no one dared to pick it. It was said to be Martin's final gift. A reminder that even in death, a true promise can outlive time itself.